is this all regarding your emotional reactions? Is this equation of emotion, is it all that simple? Yes, because you will never be able to break it. But no, it is also not completely that simple, because how do we explain dozens of emotions within our mind? How do we explain variations in severity of emotions? And how do we explain complex emotions that we have? Well, we do have answers to all of those things. And they are explained in depth in my red book, Mind Hacking Happiness, Volume 1, The Quickest Way to Happiness and Controlling Your Mind. But this is a 50,000-foot view to get you to the awesome tool at the end of this episode. So we're not going to provide all those here. To give you just a quick glance at them, though, with just a few rules of applying over the top of the equation of emotion, you can start to understand the conditions that can affect your different emotion groups, such as fear. Well, fear is when your perception is that your sense of self is in real danger and there could be nothing you could do about it. So that's fear. Anger is the definition that there is a potential devaluation of a self item, whatever it is, that you want to defend against. Okay? Sadness is you've actually taken a real loss, where your perception is that you've actually lost something on your self map, or something on your self map has taken a real devaluation. Okay? Worry, regret. Worry is a sadness or a fear that has a future resolution. Regret is a sadness that has a past resolution that you're still hanging on to. Happiness is where the equation of emotion is balanced, right? And so you have all of these rules that help decide which emotion group is going to present for you from your subconscious processing. But then the other thing that happens is you have emotion severity. So within the fear group, for instance, you have concerned at a low level, up through cautious, up through afraid, up through terrified, and then finally your high level of emotion on fear is panic. And the same is true for every other emotion group. You have, down at the low level of anger, you have annoyed. And then up above that, you have frustrated, angry, hate, rage, etc., depending on the power level of the severity of the emotion in the group that's being presented to you. Now, we'll get to this stuff later. You don't have to memorize it all now. You don't have to understand it all now. We'll dig into this a little later so you can understand the intricacies of what's going on in your mind, so you can be able to take control of it and shut it down, etc. Throw a wrench into the whole works. Don't worry about having to know what this stuff is. But that explains how different emotion groups can exist with the one simple equation of emotion, the one simple function of your nervous system within your brain, creating all your emotional responses for you. And we'll be able to break that for you to where you can experience the positive stuff and totally bypass the negative stuff in the future. But that's basically how it works. Now, how mixed emotions work are different. Mixed emotions work through different equations of emotion playing out simultaneously. All right, let's see if we have a slide for that. Nope. So the example for this is, let's say you have an expectation or preference about your favorite sports team, and you want them to win the championship. So you have an expectation or preference that you want them to win the championship, and then you also have an expectation or preference about that game, that it'd be a good game. You want it to be entertaining. You don't want it to be a blowout, etc. Let's say they do win the championship, but they do so in a blowout fashion where it was over in the first quarter, the first portion of the game. It was just totally gone. Well, you have a mixed emotion scenario there. You have a, yay, my team won the game, but, oh man, it sucked that it was a blowout and I wasn't really interested after the first quarter, because your two equations of emotion are playing simultaneously. One is that your expectation or preference that your team won the game. Your perception is what they won the game. That's the happiness. But then the perception comes in that it was a blowout when your expectation was there would be a closer game. Well, that's a disappointment because there's an imbalance there. And you've actually taken the hit. The score of the game is what it is. So the devaluation to this has occurred. So it's a disappointment, right? It's a low-level sadness. So your happiness is mixed with the low-level sadness that, the game could have been better, etc. So that's how very complex emotions get built up, is that, dozens of equations of emotion can be playing out in a very complex emotional situation that give you a mixed emotion response based on the individual things that could land on your self map and the individual perceptions that you could have in any one event or any one instance. So again, we'll talk about that stuff in greater detail later. But the cool thing about this, it's universal. Doesn't work in just your mind, works in everybody's mind. So now you can start to see inside other people's minds, other people's emotional reactions to understand a number of things. One, how to increase your empathy, because you now understand exactly how somebody can feel a way that they're feeling about something, because you understand it not just from a cognitive processing perspective, but from an emotional processing perspective. You can increase your compassion, because now you can add the I want to help you component, which is the only difference between empathy and compassion. Empathy is that thing where you can feel somebody's pain. I feel your pain. Or you can then add the component of I want to help you. Well, that's the only difference between empathy and compassion, is that motivational thing of I not only feel your pain, I want to help you out of your pain. Right? So now you can increase your empathy game. You can increase your compassion game by looking into other people's minds. But you can also then understand how to tread lightly around somebody who might be a little difficult at times. We'll look into that stuff in future episodes of this podcast as well, so don't worry about that. We'll dig into this stuff deeper. We're just giving you the 50,000-foot view today.